All right, welcome back to Everyday Elevations, the podcast where we transform ordinary moments into extraordinary outcomes. Today, I'm very excited because this is a topic that I haven't really dove into previously and haven't really tried until speaking to Catherine to get smarter on and didn't understand the importance of it. So let me give you a little background on Catherine here. Catherine O'Leary is known as the Quiz Queen, and she's an expert in client engagement. With over 3 decades of market research and consumer insights, she specializes in attracting ideal clients and boosting revenue. Her approach uses questions to foster strong client relationships and grow businesses. Help join her mission to harness the power of curiosity to connect with your ideal clients. That's what we're going to discuss a little bit today. But first, I'd love to learn a little more about your background here. Tell the audience about yourself.
Well, thank you, Jason, and thank you for having me. And hello, everyone out there that is listening or watching. My name is Catherine O'Leary. I spent the last 30 years actually in corporate and doing market research and consumer insights, which is a very fancy way of saying that I asked a lot of questions to a lot of people, and then translated that information to whatever the corporation needed. So whether that was maybe it was a new product innovation, or maybe it was a sales conversation, or a marketing message conversation. So really understanding what clients were looking for, needing, struggling with, and how could corporations turn around and give their clients what they needed. It's something that corporations do really, really well, most corporations. And it's something that entrepreneurs tend to skip. And we tend to skip over. We tend to build something that is a solution to a problem that we had. And then we go off and try to find other people that had the same problem to buy our solution. And that's a little bit of if we build it, they will come mentality, which isn't always going to work. And it's becoming less and less likely that it will work. So really understanding your client, your ideal client, what makes them tick, what makes them, wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. wishing for or desiring or worried about, and how can you connect with them and help them solve those kinds of questions. That's what I'm doing now. So, in corporate, I did that for BlackBerry and Apple and Adobe and Pepsi. And now I help, businesses and consultants and coaches to, tap into that, that insight and that real, understanding of what needs to come next, or, how to talk about your services in a way that is going to fill that 3 a.m. question for your ideal clients.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to just jump right into this because it's on the top of mind here. What are some of the things that you would go through with those corporations in terms of getting them to be able to connect with their ideal client base?
So corporations tend to utilize surveys, and surveys are different than quizzes. Surveys are you put out a survey, tons of questions, 50, 70 questions. You might have people show up to a ballroom to do the quiz or the survey because they have to see prototypes, or they need, some instructions to fill out the survey. But your client doesn't end up getting anything other than maybe they get paid for their time. They don't get any kind of insights. They don't learn anything about themselves based on their answers to the questions. The corporation gets a ton of information, and depending on how the survey was constructed, they're able to use that, that information in a bit of a black box that the client never sees to come up with, maybe it's Pepsi figuring out what the next, long weekend bundle needs to be. So what, chips need to go with what pop for, Independence Day. Maybe it's Apple figuring out what the next iPhone needs to talk about in terms of consumer benefits. So depending on how the client, what problem they're trying to solve for the client, for their ideal client. That's how they use that information. The quiz is more of a two-way conversation. So your ideal client actually goes on a little bit of a self-discovery, avenue. That's why a quiz is fun. You get to learn a little bit about, what's stopping you from making seven figures, or what's the biggest hurdle to sleeping through the night, or what's, your next hire, or something along those lines. Like, you learn a little bit about yourself or your business, and the business learns a little bit about their ideal clients at the same time, while offering the solution that is actually meeting their clients where they're at. So it does a whole bunch of things all in a very short time frame of 5 to 8 questions. Maybe it takes 60 or 90 seconds to actually do the quiz, but you're getting a lot of value out of that.
Gotcha. So it's from the sounds of it, it's really more valuable for the quizzes overall, because not just, for instance, corporations, but whoever is doing those quizzes gets to learn more about what actually drives them. So it's a two-way street versus the kind of one-way street the surveys are, where, yeah, it's great for the corporations because they get all this information they have, and they can use that to kind of tailor products down the line. But in this case, it's more of a dual purpose and kind of even distribution of information. So interesting. I would never think of that.
Yeah, and like the client gets to learn what they, a little bit about themselves. They also get the invitation to learn more. So at the end of the quiz, you're able to say, "Oh, I get you. Jason, the next step for you to get to seven figures is to concentrate on team. And let's talk about some of the things that you can do right now about team. But if you want to learn even more about, what you need to do with team and other things to get to that seven figures, let's have a talk. So it's, a webinar, a masterclass, a sales call, whatever that looks like. So you continue the conversation and are able to meet your clients where they're at with the solution that you have. But at the same time, you're also collecting all that information. So as a business, you have some actual data to say, this is how these questions are being answered. Do I need to tweak do I need to pivot on my messaging? Am I hitting the right, the right pain points, or the right challenges, or are my solutions resonating? You're able to actually take that information and make pivots or changes, or there might even be a product idea in there that you didn't think of. But once the information comes back, you're like, oh my gosh, like way more people are, in this segment than I thought, and I don't have a product for them. Maybe I can create something really quick, like a masterclass or something that I can give them and offer to them. So there's, the client does get to learn more about themselves and about the problem that they have, and some solutions, to that problem, as well as get an invitation to learn more. And the business gets to learn a little bit more about the problem, the problem that the clients are having. And, is there anything that they need to do differently?
It's fair. Okay. See, I'm already learning so much on this call. We're only a couple minutes into it. I love it. Because these are things that, again, like I said earlier on, I never really thought about until we had our first pre-call. I was like, interesting. So now when I see like an online quiz from companies I purchased from, I'll go in and fill them out, because I'm like, oh, what else can you do for me here? And obviously I realize that I'm helping them out by filling out, because they're getting more information, able to tailor their products to a wider customer base, or as you said, create new products. So that's pretty neat. There's one thing that stood out when you initially started talking here. I love that 3 a.m. question. How do you understand an ideal client's 3 a.m. question, and how is that like key to engagement?
So the ideal question, so as you find your ideal client, and as you get their profile and their avatar, and you build all that, the question that they're waking up with when it comes to their business, or when it comes to the solution that you can actually help them with. So I'm not saying like they're waking up and they're wondering, how am I going to get my kid to soccer, and you're not, like, that's not your business. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, you have a a solution, what is the 3 a.m. question that your clients are waking up with? The trick to the 3 a.m. question is it needs to be specific to your ideal client, right? A lot of people tell me that their ideal clients have more than one 3 a.m. question when it comes to their solutions. My challenge to that is, are you niche down far enough? Right? So make sure that you are niche down far enough and tight enough that you have a really clear 3 a.m. question that your ideal client wakes up with, in relation to your business and your solution. The other thing is, do you know what people are waking up with? Like, waking up in the middle of the night, what language they're using? What do they say when they, like, at 3 a.m., they're like, oh my God, what? Like, oh my God, I wish I could. Oh my God, I can't wait. Or I just wish. Or how am I going to? Like, what is the rest of that sentence in their words? Because as entrepreneurs, we tend to be on the other side of the solution. And the other side of the solution looks really different. And we talk about it differently because we've learned, some of the tips and tricks and so on. So we forget what it's like to be in the weeds of that problem. And we tend to get a little bit more clever than clear. So nobody wakes up with this marketing jargon, right? Like I can guarantee you that almost none of my clients wake up thinking about quiz funnels. Like that doesn't have, I think I wake up thinking about quiz funnels, and that's it, in the history of the universe. But my clients wake up thinking about, how do I get more clients? Or how do I stop wasting time with people that aren't, qualified to, that aren't like right for my business and they're not ready for me? How do I get more efficient? How do I find those, ideal clients in like this pool of people that aren't ready for me? Those are the kinds of questions that they wake up with, and there are lots of ways that you can find out what that looks like. There's check out Amazon. Amazon is the biggest marketplace in the world. If you put your topic into Amazon, check out what books have been written recently. What are they titled? What do their summaries say? What are some of those keywords? If you put your topic into Google, what searches come up? What competitors come up? Are they the right competitors? Because I know when I put in, for example, lead generation, I got LinkedIn and Salesforce and all these ads, and I was like, oh, that's not where I want to play, right? That's not actually what I do. I don't have, like, that's not what I'm offering people. I'm offering people a way to, attract their ideal clients. So, let's switch to client attraction. When I did that in Google, then I got, what I expected for the search terms. So now I knew I was on the right path for the language that my clients use.
Okay. Love it. Another thing that stood out to me here, just during that brief little part of the conversation, the ideal client. I kind of feel like you went over it already in here, but I just want to make sure for somebody who's maybe not sure who their ideal client is. How would you recommend them figuring that out? Is it something where it'd be like online quizzes to kind of ask, or how would they determine this, or how would you recommend?
Yeah, that's probably the step before a quiz, because a quiz works best when you already know who your ideal client is, because by knowing your ideal client, you can figure out the 3 a.m. question, which is what you need for the quiz hook. That first question that's going to draw them in. Trying to figure out your target audience, that's like a step before. So when you're figuring out your offer, when you're figuring out your, who you want to serve, and who has the problem that you're solving for. So they're, as you're starting your business, and as you're, before you get to this growth phase where a quiz can come in, you're delving into who your ideal client is and target is, and honestly, the riches are in the niches. So like the further down you go, the further tighter your target audience is, the easier it is to message, the easier it is to find the 3 a.m. question, and the easier it is to actually market and sell to them. So I know that a lot of people like, hey, my stuff is for everyone. Okay, then my challenge to you is, who do you want to work with? Because you don't want to work with everyone. There are people that you do not want to work with, right? Like maybe you don't want to work with people that are a victim mentality. Maybe you don't want to work with people that don't have the money to pay you. Maybe you don't want to work with, people that are in a time zone that puts you in the middle of the night. Like you know, there are ways to get to your ideal client definition.
Okay. No, I mean, that makes sense. I don't really have much more on that because you kind of really clarified that one a lot. I think I know me personally, I'm still trying to figure out because I know I'm going down my own business path. So some of these questions might be a little bit selfish just because I'm trying to get smarter on things. And I realize that
it's your podcast, Jason. You get to ask.
Yeah, I like to not make it about me though. But at the same time, the whole basis of this podcast was my own personal journey. So I'm trying to figure out how I turn this into a coaching model, then speaking model. And so that's something where I've been I use ChatGPT a lot for things, and they actually have a life coach on there now, a program, and it's actually
I'm sure. Yeah.
playing with. I'm sure they've had it for a while, but I just found it at this point in time. Started playing with that and going into those questions. So a lot of stuff what you're saying right there is like very similar to what we'll just call this Coach Rachel or whatever the name is of this GPT model going through and saying. So I love the fact that they're just lining up, because that was something before this call, like shortly before, I wasn't sure. I was like, what would be my ideal client base? I think that's, and I should have realized this, but with your online quiz, I didn't think about the fact that you have to know who you want to reach out to, because there's no point doing a quiz if you're not going to reach the right target audience.
Yeah, I mean, you're just going to end up confused. You're probably going to end up confusing yourself and your clients if you really don't have like who do you want at the end of the day to be talking to. Because it's just you're just going to end up with a whole bunch of people that are not the right fit, and you're just in the same problem of too much time, too much effort being spent on trying to find those your ideal client shouldn't be needles in the haystack. Your ideal client should be like by the time they get to you, they should like that should already be solved for. They should be ready to maybe not. They're not ready to go immediately, but they should be somebody that is like, okay, I can't do this now, but I want to do it later. At the very least.
Okay. Yep, makes sense. So along those lines, let's talk. Okay, you find your ideal client, but maybe you're not clear enough on the message you want to give them. And let's say even on the survey itself, how do you end up simplifying that so that you can kind of convey that journey for the future customer or client, basically from their problem to your solution? Like how do you unlock that so that you can gain more clientele?
So the way that that I do that is with storytelling through questions. So you've got the problem that your clients have, you have your solution, and now you have to connect the two. You have to connect the dots. And the challenge that a lot of people have right now, and what they do is that somebody says, that they have this problem, and then people jump immediately into a solution, right? And they haven't taken the time to kind of walk through why your solution is right for their problem. Right. So I call it proposing marriage on the first date. I've got this problem. Great. I've got a solution. Just give me your credit card and we're good to go. Right. It's like, ew, no, that's not what we want to do. So if you can take them through a little bit of a conversation, I call it a coffee chat. So Jason, if you and I were sitting down at Starbucks or something, and you said, look, I'm needing to find more clients. I want to find, I want to improve my client attraction. How do I do that? There are a couple of questions that I probably need to know before I'd ever say, oh, a quiz is right for you, because it might not be, right? That might not be the thing for you yet. So let's talk. Like, tell me about your business. How long have you been in business? What have you been doing to attract clients thus far? What's worked? What hasn't? What have you done to to fix what's not working. What do you think the biggest challenge is? Where do you want to be in a year? And that kind of that kind of information, first of all, makes you kind of think through it. Okay, this is my business. This is what I've tried. This is what has worked. This is what hasn't. And then when I come to you with oh, okay, you know what? Yeah, a quiz could work for you, because what you really need to do is, make sure that your clients are really super clear on your solution. Right. And then you're like, oh, yeah, because based on what I just told you, that makes total sense. So now you've actually had a conversation where it's like, I have this problem. All right, let's talk about that a little bit. And you kind of walk me through what your business looks like and what that challenge looks like. And then when I come with a solution, it fits. And so you've taken that longer kind of email conversation and put it into more of a 60-second or 90-second quiz.
Gotcha. Okay. So basically, you're just asking more in-depth, penetrating questions to go along with their initial whatever question they had on the survey, or I'm sorry, the questionnaire at that point. Let's say you've already gotten the questionnaire. Yeah, the quiz. Sorry, I was gonna get there. The terminology. Don't you worry.
All right, I've been doing this a long time, Jason. Don't worry about
it. That's fair. But basically, once you get to that, you're just going to ask more. It's just like any good sales tactic. If you're trying to get somebody to realize that you're the solver of their problem, you can't, like you said, you can't just say, "Oh, okay, sure, here's a solution. Give me your credit card." I mean, some people will do that, but most people are going to be very hesitant and confused with what the heck you're offering. So in your case, you're saying, let's create a story. Let's get more information from you. This way, we'll tell you what we can do. And then from there, you'll know that we're a fit or we're not. That's
and it's not even so much get information from you. It's let's talk about it together, and then I'll give you the information. It's just that we're not physically having that real-time conversation. We're just doing that in the format of quizzes, but it's still a story. It's still you have this problem. Let's kind of discuss it. Let's kind of pull it apart and put it back together again. And then, then I can offer a solution that makes sense, for you, that I can say, you know what, this makes sense for you. And if you want to learn more, so here's a little bit of what you can do to fix this particular problem that you're dealing with. But if you want to learn more about, how to do this even, further, and also, some of the other techniques and tactics that will help you, get the rest of the way through to the problem that you're looking to solve, then we can go to a masterclass. We can go to a webinar. We can go to a sales call or whatever. But we've kind of had a little bit of a date, before we have a second date.
That's perfect. So I'm going to change gears a little bit here. Just because first, I'm going to give you the opportunity, if there's anything we didn't touch on, let you talk about. But I also like to ask a little bit more personal questions during the episode as well. So first and foremost, I love if there's anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you want to, and if there's best ways for people, for any of my listeners to reach out to you if they maybe want to get some consultation from you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking, Jason. The best way really to reach me, surprisingly, I have a quiz. So if you go to quizformybiz.com, that will actually take you through a process and a conversation with me, effectively, on how to connect better with your clients. So how to connect the problem that they have with the solution that you have, because there's some missing gaps, communication gaps that people tend to have when they're talking about the solution to the problem. And we use the quiz to actually figure out what gaps that you might have and help you close that gap and bridge that gap. So if you want to learn more about, how quiz looks and feels and how it's worded, and also get some information for yourself and your business, quizformybiz.com, that will invite you after the fact to a masterclass if you want to learn even more and connect with me there.
Love it. And then is there any additional topics maybe we didn't get a chance to broach it all that you want to chat on real quick, or?
I think that one of the questions that a lot of people tend to have is around technology. And like the quiz does have a technology component. And I would say that I'm personally technology agnostic. There are lots of different technology solves. Um, Quiz technology or platforms are very much like CRMs. It kind of depends on how techy you are, how, what your budget is, and, what bells and whistles you really need to launch your quiz. You can go from free with a jot form as long as you use the cards as opposed to the form, because nobody wants to fill out a form that looks like a mortgage application. So don't make it look like a mortgage application. And all the way to a CRM that has quiz capability. So there's always a technology solve. I think that what I stand for and what the Ideal Client Academy is all about is let's get the strategy. Let's get the quiz written well, so that you can use the data at the back end for insights. And let's make sure that we've got that story of problem to solution in a way that is going to excite your ideal clients to make sure that they pick up the phone and call you or go to your masterclass. So yeah, technology, like, don't get hung up on it. There's lots of different ways to do it.
That's fair. I mean, it's something simple. I mean, since we're already on the topic of technology, they go into analysis paralysis on what podcast platform to use.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Whatever's going to get your information out the easiest for you. I mean, I know I went through it, and thankfully I just had a friend who's like, dude, just pick one. Good news is your podcast can be released on every single platform anyways. All you need to worry about is where you want to host, and even that's not that serious. You can always change it another time. Kind of just like I'm assuming it would be similar to I guess for lack of a better term, the quiz CRMs, you change it. If maybe that one didn't fit your needs at the moment anymore, you can move to something else. So I love the fact you touched on that, because I wouldn't have really thought that too much, but Apple does so many different things. But with that,
and depending on what you need it for, like, again, you can like the quiz for my biz is built mostly on a free jot form, just because I was playing with it and I wanted to see if I could. So that's what it's sitting on now, and then the landing pages are in my CRM. So there are lots of ways to get the technology to work. I am more concerned that people have thought through their quiz and their quiz questions, because I see too many quizzes out there that start with, like, what's your dog's name? Go to what shirt are you wearing? What car do you drive? And voila, here's your financial plan. Because those are crappy questions.
All right. So after a little bit of technical difficulty, we had to reschedule just this final portion for the next day here. So life happens, is what it is. But I want to make sure we got to ask those final questions, do a proper wrap up. So with that, I'm going to dive into those questions here real quick. It's my fun way of kind of get to know you on a little more of a personal level versus the podcast business-esque level. So this very first question I like to ask, it's, if you had a quote that you would live by or even put on your tombstone, what would that quote be for you?
Yeah, I think that right now I've been doing a lot of reading with Dan Kennedy. It's all about living in the gain and not the gap. And what that means is, if you're constantly looking to the horizon, and all your goals and everything are on the horizon is something that you almost never reach. So it can feel like you're never making the steps that you actually are. So if you live in the gain, then you can kind of, look back to say, oh, this week I did this, this, and this. Oh, wow, I've really propelled myself forward. Not that you wouldn't have those horizon like goals and so on, but it's good to have those, but live in the gain per se. And just remember where you've come, and how far you've come, how far you've actually added to getting to your bigger goals. it's an easier way to just celebrate your wins and just always kind of stay positive and not get down on yourself for not, oh my gosh, I didn't hit the that big income goal that I wanted to hit. Well, you've probably done a lot of things to actually take yourself to that point. So celebrate the little wins or the big wins, and live in the game. It makes decisions a lot easier too, as to what networking to do, or maybe what courses or events to pay for. If you're living in the game, it's easier to say, do I really need that, as opposed to live in the gap where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not there yet. So I'm just like, now I'm just chasing around everything, trying to fill that gap. So I found it very helpful to live in the present, celebrate my wins, and not have quite as much FOMO. Not running around trying to do all the things that all the people are doing, and actually focusing in on my business.
No, I love it. So I like to refer to that, and I've read this somewhere, so I'm not going to try and take credit. I just can't remember who actually called it this. They called it a victory vault. So putting all your little wins in a victory vault so you can continuously celebrate those and look back on them in times of struggle. So I completely understand where you're coming from. I love that. Love that quote a lot.
I like that.
Yeah, it's fun. It sounds like a party. But see, this makes me. I got to update my quote. Mine is "Be where your feet are," which is from a mentor of mine, Jesse Itzler. And at the time when I really loved that quote, and where it meant most to me was when I just had a hard time staying in the present. So it's just about being where you are, not worrying about the past or the future, just the now. But I don't think it's as relative to me anymore because I'm pretty good about staying in the present. So I think I'm going to work on updating mine as well here. I love your quote. I have one more question for you. It's a two-parter though.
Okay.
So first part is, what is your superpower? And the second part will be, if there's a superpower you can have, and it doesn't have to be comic book superpower or anything like that, but it can be, what would that power be and why?
Okay. So my superpower is thinking strategically and being able to look at data and really visualize what's going on with it. And being able to say, not just X percent said something, but what does that honestly mean? And how can businesses use that information? So from a business standpoint, it's really kind of thinking strategically with some data, and making data driven decisions. As far as I know, what superpower that I absolutely would love, and it's transport, like being able to instantly transport, so that you wouldn't have to get on a plane to go to Bali, or you wouldn't, to go to Australia or something. You could just like, boom, be there. I would absolutely love if no one had to commute anywhere and you could just like teleport to different places. I've wanted that since I watched the Jetsons back in the day. So, that's something that I'm really hoping Tesla or somebody will actually, figure out.
Right? Somebody's got to figure out at some point here. It's ridiculous. Right? We've made enough TV shows about it. There has to be some sort of science behind it actually happening.
Beam me to the beach. Like that's all I want. Like
That's funny. So I'm with you. I'm all about the teleportation. I actually had somebody talk to me about flight versus that. And I was like, I get it. But I was like, at the same time, because their argument was, well, I enjoy the visualization of the road trip. Like, okay, but I enjoy being in the location so I can explore that more.
Yeah,
and I also enjoy having a fatter wallet.
Yeah, I'm okay with zapping point to point as a road trip. Like, well, let's go here now and then be there. As opposed to, but as somebody that commuted 3 hours a day at one point in time in my career, I am not about the road trip at all. Like, the faster I can get there, the better.
See, I still love road trips, but 3-hour commute, I don't blame you. No. I hate them at that point too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, sweet. Well, those are my two questions I'd like to ask. I always seem to get fun answers with it, so I appreciate you for taking the time to be on the show. With that, I just want to give a big shout out for anybody who winds up listening to this episode, once it's released. If you enjoyed the episode, please show us some love by hitting that like button, subscribe, and leaving a detailed review. Let us know what you enjoyed about the episode. Anything else that you wish we would have covered or maybe can cover in the future. And then check me out on Instagram at Everyday Elevations so we can get some exclusive content, the latest updates, and a peek behind the scenes at me and what I do. And then we're getting ready to release a blog post. So sign up for the Wellness Diaries at everydayelevationspodcast.com. Thanks again for your time.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.